I promised you guys that you'd get to see a lot more of my ugly mug, and I'm a man of my word. Compilation albums. You know them, you love them. The cynical part of me knows that compilation albums are really little more than just cynical cash grabs by aging bands who are looking to stretch their discography for an extra couple bucks that much further. If I'm being charitable, I might say compilation albums are a good entry point for checking out a band for the first time, and they usually fall into one of two categories. Either here's our biggest charting hits compiled into one record, CD, cassette, whatever, or here's a bunch of rarities that we want to present in one package. B-sides, unreleased tracks, live stuff. But sometimes you get a compilation album that doesn't really seem to fit into either of those categories, and we're talking about one of those today. So this comes from a line of albums released by Universal Records over the years called the Icon series. And they've released icon albums for everybody from Michael Jackson to ABBA to Blink-182. Even Limp Bizkit has an Icon series compilation album. But the one we're talking about today is from the band Rush. Now, according to the liner notes, this is supervised by Jeff Fura, digitally assembled by Mike Jones at Universal Mastering Studios West, released in 2010 by Universal Records. Now, the thing about this is definitely one of the weirdest compilation records I have ever seen. Hands down, has the strangest track list. So, I'm going to go through it with you, and the track list on this is very much one song from each album between their debut up to Hold Your Fire. So we start with two songs that I would consider to be pretty big Rush staples. You know, songs that every Rush fan the world over knows by heart. Working Man from their debut, and the title track from Fly By Night. Okay, that's pretty normal. I don't see what the big issue is. So then we get to Caress of Steel, and you know what song they chose to represent Caress of Steel on this? The Necromancer. Yeah, that's a choice. They made that choice. So now we get to 2112. I'm going to give you a moment to guess which track they used to represent 2112, one of their all-time classic records. No, it wasn't that one. Close, but it wasn't that one either. The Twilight Zone. The Twilight Zone. For Farewell to Kings, they went pretty conservative, close to the heart. I mean, boring. Hemispheres. Circumstances. Probably the least of a hit from Rush fans on that album. Odd choice. I would have gone with the Trees, but they went Circumstances. We're back into boring territory with Permanent Waves and Moving Pictures, Free Will, Limelight. Yeah, those are pretty boring choices. Signals. This album had the band's only proper top 40 pop hit. And that's not on here. It's not New World Man, and it also isn't Subdivisions. They chose The Analog Kid. And then for the last three albums, you know, the Grace Under Pressure, Power Windows, Hold Your Fire, these are pretty standard choices. Even then, they're still kind of maybe a little left field when you consider the other tracks are on them. Red Sector A, Marathon, and Force 10. So again, the track listing for this Rush compilation CD: Working Man, Fly By Night, The Necromancer, The Twilight Zone, Closer to the Heart, Circumstances, Free Will, Limelight, The Analog Kid, Red Sector A, Marathon, and Force 10 on the Rush Icon series. And this is a Universal Records product. This is a legit release. This isn't a bootleg. This isn't some compilation created by, a Japanese record label that has, like, the bare minimum ties to Rush's people. This is a proper Rush compilation record. I'm going to say I have my doubts that Rush themselves were involved in any way in the creation of this disc. I don't imagine Geddy, Alex, and Neil were losing sleep trying to find the best track list for a 12-track compilation album. But this is just really strange, really weird and out of left field track listing. I mean, there are some songs on here that are pretty well expected, but I mean, even on the more popular discs, I mean, Free Will and Limelight, great tracks, but you kind of expect to see Tom Sawyer and Spirit of Radio. Red Sector A over Distant Early Warning is kind of a weird choice. Marathon, that's a pretty safe choice. Force 10 over Time Stands Still, I don't know. There's just so many weird choices that went into this disc, and this is by far the weirdest compilation disc I've ever seen in my life. It's not very beginner friendly. I mean, you're exposing first timers to Rush to the Necromancer. That's something. And some of these songs just aren't really big hits of theirs. I mean, The Analog Kid, Twilight Zone, they're pretty deep cuts for Rush. But I have to say that in some regards, I actually kind of like this. I mean, I like all of the songs that are on this. These are all great songs from Rush. But, wow. I kind of wish more bands would do something like this. Like, get more daring with their compilation releases. You know, how many times are we going to get the same 10 Queen tracks on a greatest hits CD? Maybe throw in, like, a couple deep cuts, like the Prophet song, or, something along those lines. Why can't Song for America be on a Kansas greatest hits album? Or, maybe instead of representing Fragile with Roundabout, South Side of the Sky could be a really cool track for first-time Yes fans to discover on a compilation. So, yeah, this is just such a weird compilation disc, and I found it while I was rummaging through my CD collection that I just got back from my old apartment, and I had forgotten that I owned this, and when I looked through the track listing, I was aghast, but also mildly intrigued, slightly aroused. So, once again, by far, the weirdest compilation album you'll ever see. Thanks for watching, and blah blah blah.